third time's the charm. My mom called again and screwed everything up. Um, Bless her. We're trying to organize a Christmas trip. Um, so she's on the phone, I guess, with my sister. My sister's on the phone with some travel agent, and she's going back and forth. What time of the day do you want to fly? I don't care. All right. But in any case, we're giving peace a chance. Still not defining really what peace education is, and the whole idea of misnomer is that, what does peace actually mean in the first place? Maybe perhaps we use it in a unfortunate way. It is a misnomer to think that peace education is mainly or only about ending military conflict. Okay, we're getting a little bit closer to a definition. And the death and destruction that inevitably are associated with it. Peace education is rightfully directed at social, political, economic, and educational injustices found throughout society. So peace education, I guess, is trying to fight is probably the wrong term, economic inequality, fight against economic inequality, war in the military-industrial complex, non-human animals in the environment, rape and sexual assault, sweatshops, all that type of stuff. All the bad stuff. We want to try to make the world a better place. That's what peace education is all about. Yeah, as I say here, things be bad and we need to fix it. And this time, I know I'm being sort of tongue-in-cheek about this, but it is important, even though I think the way these folks write, they come off as a little bit hokey, and perhaps when you write like that, aren't taken as seriously as perhaps if you were. Yeah, I don't know. In any case, that's peace education. Teaching peace. Teaching peace means teaching strategy to try to make the world a better place. Peace as a political force. That is when we start with the introduction by the editors of the book, Jason Del Gandio and Anthony J. Nocella. I need to figure out how to say that. My favorite quote, I like the way they start with quotes, is by the Dalai Lama. Peace does not mean an absence of conflicts. Differences will always be there. Peace means solving these differences through peaceful means, through dialogue, education, knowledge, and through humane ways. My dog passed away last summer, but his spiritual leader was the Dalai Lassie. Okay, so they go through here and they continue to try to define what peace is. So they're all about peace. They say, again, sort of going back to what the other guy said, by peace we do not mean standing around in a circle, holding hands, and expressing our affection for one another. That has its time and place. Does it? Maybe. But we understand peace as a political force for social justice and progressive social change. So they talk a little bit about MLK, which is one of the reasons why I offered you a letter from Birmingham jail. So it talks about, you got to struggle. And opposition, conflict, struggle oftentimes have negative associations, but we have to do that. Quoting MLK, they say, freedom, or he says, but they quote him, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor, must be demanded by the oppressed. You know this. In other words, activist and social movements begin with opposition. If there were no opposition, then your desired changes would already exist. Okay. That leads to conflict. Different people have different views and opinions about what kind of world to live in. You must then struggle to create the world that you envision. All right. So, there is suffering in the world. And we want to try to oppose that to make things better. They talk about at the bottom of the page, actually 2 here, when they're getting into the real numbers. Oppression, marginalization, domination, cruelty, coercion, and individual systemic violence are real. And that's true, right? People, as well as animals in nature, are brutalized on a daily basis. That suffering is neither natural nor inherent. Instead, it is a product of our current world. But the world is up for grabs. It's not on lockdown, and it's not set in stone. Each and every one of us has the right to fight for the world that we want to live in. The question thus becomes, what kind of world do you want? So, yeah. So, again, this is setting up the entire book, strategies to try to make the world a better place. The ills of the world is the next little section. What kind of world do I want to live in? Where we got to fight for we no longer have to fight for our right to party. Okay. So, I'll let you read the specifics, but once you get the book. Economic inequality. Why is college so damn expensive? Did you know approximately 46 million people in the United States live at or below the poverty line? And they're even questioning the definition of poverty. Talk about average salaries. Did you know on the average salary in 2009 for an American CEO was 263 times that of the average American worker? Yikes. A lot of economic inequality. And that always translates to, if you have money, you have more power, political opportunity, all sorts of different things. The war and military-industrial complex, again, termed by Eisenhower. We have 700 military bases worldwide. Defense, is the biggest part of our national budget. We got warheads, though not as many as we used to have. We've been in lots of wars, and unfortunately, a lot of people profit from that. Talks about non-human animals and the environment, and it's not just about the chickens. It's not just about the goats and the sheep and the dogs and the rabbits and the chimpanzees. It's not just about the monkeys. It's about also the birds. So approximately 10 billion food animals are killed each year in the United States. Much of the food production revolves around factory farming, which is both inhumane and unsustainable. But not just that. For profit, they poison us. They expose us to increased possibility of disease and illness. An estimated 89% of U.S. beef patties contain traces of E. coli. Approximately 650,000 Americans are sickened by salmonella tainted eggs each year. Excellent. In the little town I grew up in Oklahoma, there's a little mom and pop restaurant there called Sam and Ella's. It's a chicken place. That's pretty funny. I love factory farms, but also it means just the environment. Climate change is real, people. Rape and sexual assault, just horrible, horrible things that have happened most recently in Stanford. And we live in this rape culture in which, it's just crazy. What did that Stanford dude got like 1 day in jail or something? I don't know. Just the stats are just horrible. Sweatshops and modern day slavery. Slavery still exists. A lot of things that I might be wearing came from various factories in various countries where they pay people hardly anything. So, racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, all that just, there's some bad stuff going on. But we have made progress. Look at all these. Can you see them? All these movements that we've had to try to make change. um, abolitionist movement, women's suffrage, U.S. labor movement. I'll let you read all this stuff, what they did. Civil rights, Black Power, American Indian movement, 1960s radicalism, hippies, women's liberation movement, the ERA, gay liberation movement, pro-choice, anti-nuclear proliferation, identity politics, AIDS, HIV, animal rights, global justice, anti-Iraq war, contemporary gay rights movement, immigration rights movement, climate change, climate justice, Occupy, all that type of stuff. So there's been a lot of things that have improved, obviously. Voting rights, civil rights, immigration rights, human rights, a lot of stuff. And that stuff has only come from advocacy campaigns, movements. If you don't create a movement, nothing moves. That's why they call it a movement. And I was really personally involved in a very important movement during the 1980s. Save Ferris Bueller. Okay, so then they move on to the overview of the book, which this is an introduction, so it's just sort of previewing what the book is going to be. So there's several different sections here. I've already talked about this in the syllabus, but section 1, starting with me, looking at your own life, your own personal lifestyle, and how you can be a source of activism, and how you can use communication or rhetoric to have effective messages. Section 2 is working with others. How do you make group decisions without alienating people? I don't know. How do you work together in a cohesive and productive manner? Well, we'll learn that. Section 3, getting into the streets. How do we run a public campaign? How do we occupy? So some interesting things there. Social networks, section 4. How do we build virtual connections? How do we use social media? How do we use Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, stuff like that. And then section 5 that I'll talk about here soon a little bit, institutional change. How do we actually change institutions? That's the big systemic change that is oftentimes very, very hard. How do we change laws? How do we change, the way we think about education in general? Then they have some delightful closing remarks. I like the Howard Zinn stuff. Famous historian Howard Zinn once said, "You can't be neutral on a moving train." See, movement. The world is already moving. It is up to you to move it in the right direction. Action does not guarantee success, but inaction guarantees failure. We hope that you can use this book on your journey toward a better world. No. As Ferris Bueller said, life moves pretty fast, and don't stop and take a look or something. It might pass you by. I don't remember. So, long and short of it, even though, again, I'm being sort of tongue-in-cheek about all this type of stuff, they're setting this book up. We got a lot of problems in our society, in the world. But we have hope that we can make the world a better place, as sort of cheesy and corny as that sounds. And this book is here to offer ideas on how to do that. That's pretty much it. I will be back with chapter 10 at some point.